Word of the Lord.
Our first reading for this Sunday comes from the prophet Jeremiah. We would like to reflect on the following question or theme. How deep is my relationship? How deep is my commitment to Jesus Christ? How much can I bear for Him? How much am I willing to bear for Him? In the first reading, we find this holy and very tender, gentle prophet, Jeremiah. But he evoked different types of responses to his person and to his message. Even if he did not mean any harm, even if the truth that he was proclaiming comes from God and is meant to awaken people to return to God. Yet, the responses to him and his message varied. For example, in the first reading, we find the princess telling the king, "This Jeremiah must be put to death." Well, if you recommend the death sentence for someone, that means, in your estimation, this person is causing a lot of trouble. True enough, the princess who recommended the death penalty for Jeremiah said that this man does not really care for the people. He does not console them. He does not uplift the people. Instead, he causes despair among them. He frustrates the people. So, he is a nuisance. He is not an asset to the community. He should be eliminated. And the sad thing was, the king just surrendered Jeremiah to this powerful princess. And they arrested him, they tied him, and lowered him into a cistern that was not filled with water, but with mud. Imagine if you are brought down, and buried in mud. That is a sure way to die. It's a quick way to die and a painful way to die. You would think, you would ask yourself, what did Jeremiah do to merit this type of death? What did he say to evoke such anger and hatred from people? It is good that you have someone like Ebed-Melech who pleaded with the king and said, well, there is poverty, there is famine in the city. Jeremiah could die even without him being put in the cistern. So let him out. And with the bad situation in the city, he will surely die. And the king acceded to. But what is the point? Depending on people's commitment to Jeremiah and his message, they will react or respond correspondingly. Jeremiah elicited some form of commitment from those who were open to his message, and they supported him. But others just did not see how Jeremiah could be tolerated, and so they planned his death. My brothers and sisters, this is the whole point of the question that I raised at the beginning. How deep is our commitment to Jesus? If we are for Jesus, we will respond positively to Him. But let us admit, if our commitment to Jesus and to people of God like Jeremiah, we can dismiss their language, dismiss their teaching, and even plan to eliminate them. So, this is not so much a question about Jeremiah. This is not so much a question about Jesus. It's a question about ourselves too. How deep is our commitment? And how much are we willing to bear for them?
The word of the Lord.
Our second reading for this Sunday comes from the letter to the Hebrews. We are reflecting on the question, how deep is my relationship to Jesus Christ? How deep is my commitment to Jesus Christ? How do I respond to Him? Do I welcome Him? Do I reject Him? And how much am I willing to bear for Him? In this second reading, we find Jesus being presented to us as someone who perfects our faith. He does not only give us faith, He does not only strengthen our faith, He perfects our faith. And He is also depicted as someone who inspires us all the more to faith. That's why the author of the letter to the Hebrews says, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. In your journey in life, don't let your eyes be distracted. Keep your gaze on Him. Focus on Him. And you will be able to survive in your journey in life and in your journey of faith. This is the ideal situation where we, focused on Christ, will look at Him as our inspiration, as the source of our strength, and as the perfecter of our faith. Yet, the author of the letter to the Hebrews is also quite realistic. He says that Jesus in His lifetime met with opposition. Not everyone saw inspiration in Him. Not everyone saw in Him the strength and the guide towards life's journey. Some people opposed Him, and that opposition is due to sin. So, who rejected Jesus? Sinners. Those who found in His person and in His message not a message or a word that consoles them. They found in Jesus something that disturbs them. And they would rather eliminate the disturbance caused by Jesus. So they opposed Him. They turned away from Him to the point of putting Him to death. This is very similar to the reaction that some people rendered to Jeremiah in the first reading. So the second reading is inviting us to look into ourselves. Here is Jesus, and you have two different types of reactions to Him. Those who look up to Him as the model of faith will persevere and will journey with Him, no matter what the cost. That's why the author of the second reading says, imitate Him, journey with Him, do not give up. He did not give up for us. So like Him, fight the good fight. In your struggles in life, think of Jesus. He is your inspiration. Those followers of Christ who cling to Jesus will bear with all the sufferings that Jesus had experienced. But sad to say, there is another set of people who find in Jesus someone who should not be emulated or followed. And they chose sin. They chose sin. And because of sin, they opposed Jesus. My dear brothers and sisters, the conflicts that Jesus experienced in His lifetime and continues to experience now is really born out of the character of His person and His message. He elicits different levels of responses and commitments from us. So this is a sobering Sunday. How do we regard Jesus? Are we so committed to Him that we will fight for Him and even bear sufferings on account of His person and His message? Or are we the first ones to oppose Him? And by opposing Him, oppose also those who speak His word and proclaim His person. This is not just a question about who Jesus is, but a question about our relationship with Him.
Of the Lord.
Our gospel for this Sunday comes from St. Luke. We are reflecting on the question, how deep is my relationship with Jesus? How deep is my commitment to Him? Am I so committed to Him that I can bear even sufferings for Him? Now, this question is made more true with the dilemma, or by the dilemma, that our gospel passage, especially the opening lines, give to us. Imagine Jesus describing His mission in terms of lighting a fire on the earth, and how He wishes that the whole earth would be ignited, would be aflame with the fire that He would light. And then He says that He has a baptism to undergo. Now, we know that He, at the beginning of His mission, His public ministry, underwent the baptism in the Jordan in the hands or through the hands of John the Baptist. But He also spoke of another baptism, the baptism of suffering. And He's aware of that. And He says that He is anticipating it. He seems to be longing to undergo that baptism. And to make this mystery deeper, He says that He came to bring not peace, but division. You want to ask Jesus, but Jesus, when you were born, the angels sang, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace to people of good will." You are supposed to be the fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah, where the Prince of Peace would be born. Are you not the bringer of peace? Are you not true to your own words? Like even in the resurrection, your greeting was, "Peace be with you." So how come in the passage for this Sunday, in your public ministry, there was an occasion when you said, you came not to bring peace, but division? How do we understand this? Of course, there are many different ways of describing the mission of Jesus Christ. There are different aspects of His mission. And so, He is quite justified in describing this total mission in different ways, like igniting a fire, being baptized, drinking of the cup of suffering, bringing peace, but also this Sunday, bringing division. But to understand this division that He brings whenever He speaks, whenever He engages in mission, maybe we should go to the reverse. We go to the response of people to Jesus. Jesus did not bring a message of division per se. He did not come in order just to enjoy division happening in our world. No. He has one message. But as we already saw in the first reading, Jeremiah hit people differently. Some people received his message. Some people saw his message as threatening, a message that does not help the city. And so they decided he must die. In the second reading, the letter to the Hebrews also tells us that Jesus could be an inspiration to other people, to some. He could be a model. He could be the model of perfect faith. That's one type of commitment that Jesus elicits from some people. They look at him, they listen to him, and they find in him someone to follow at all cost. But according to the second reading, some people opposed Jesus, the sinners, and like those who plotted against Jeremiah, sinners also plotted to kill Jesus. And that is the whole point in the gospel. Depending on how seriously we take Jesus and his message, we will respond correspondingly. And that's where the division and even conflicts arises. There will be division in the family based on their commitment to Christ, based on how they regard Jesus and his message. That's why, according to Jesus, in a household of 5 persons, there will be division between 3 and 2. 2 against 3. Father will be split against son, son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. The conflict is not about inheritance. The conflict is not about property. The division comes from their differing stands about Jesus, their different estimations of who Jesus is. So the division is deeper. When it is a question of discipleship, we cannot be neutral to Jesus. That's why religious discussions about the Word of God, about Jesus, can be one of the most heated discussions we can engage in. Some people say whenever politics is the topic of discussion, the discussion easily turns into a debate. That's true. But you know, one topic that can easily cause tension, screaming, is the question of faith, the question of religion. And there we see where our hearts lie. Before Jesus and his message, we cannot be neutral, we cannot be indifferent. Our level of commitment to him will also define what we are for or what we will be against. And very often, choosing Jesus would put us in the company of some people who also accept Jesus. But accepting Jesus might also bring us to a dangerous path of conflict with those who do not accept Jesus, even among our family members. But the point of the second reading is, fix your eyes on Jesus. You may suffer conflicts. You may suffer persecution and misunderstanding. But keep your eyes fixed on him, for he underwent the same thing. You may suffer a bit because of your faith, but don't worry. Jesus experienced the same thing, and if you cling to him, then hopefully you will journey with him towards the joy of being in the presence of the Father. So, my dear brothers and sisters, Following Jesus is not an easy thing. It is not a cute little thing. It is not a matter of just jumping up and down and enjoying ourselves. Faith brings us to some of the deepest choices that we have to make. And those choices in favor of Jesus may be unpopular to others, even to family members. And there the division enters. It is not a search for division per se. It is not to enjoy division per se, but it is enjoying faith and bearing the consequences of following Jesus. When I was a young priest, I was able to encounter in a meeting a very wealthy person. I could not imagine the magnitude of her wealth, but she was quite frank and candid with a description of her inheritance. But I noticed that she did not belong to the group that we were meeting, because it was a group of rather poor sectors of society. What was she doing there? She said she had realized, after studying history and after taking her faith seriously, after discovering the call of the gospel and the social teachings of the church, that it is her Christian obligation to share what she had. So she made the decision to give the bigger portion of her share of the inheritance from her family to the poor, and would retain only what she thought was needed, what was sufficient to live. Of course, she had to tell this to her family, and they threatened her, and they even said they would disown her. It was painful for her, she said, but she had to make a choice: following Christ or succumbing to the pressure from family. She chose Christ. She was disowned. She lost property, but she said, "This is the price that I have to pay if I want to follow Jesus." Hard teaching, brothers and sisters. This is the division that comes when you fix your eyes on Jesus. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.